Good morning, New Beginnings family. My name's TJ, and I get the honor of bringing you guys today's devotional. And I'm going to bring you our devotional today out of Matthew 27. It's going to be verse 45 and 46. It says this. It says, "Now from the 6th hour there is darkness all over the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And today I just want to look at two quick things. Number one, what does this statement mean for Jesus? And number two, what does this statement mean for you and I? What Jesus is saying here, he's saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? When you think about everything that has led up to this moment of him being on the cross, right? Peter denying him, Judas betraying him, the disciples all running away. And here he is asking this question, not, why did all these other people do these things? But it gets personal. Because, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you turned your back on me? What is going on? For the first time, Jesus is experiencing a withdrawal of that perfect communion with his Father. If you notice, he didn't say, my father, my dad. And this is the only time in the Synoptic Gospels that Jesus doesn't refer to God as a father, but he says, my God and my God. We see the humanity of Jesus coming out here. What Jesus is asking, what Jesus is saying is an experience at this time is something he's never experienced in his life. Right? That perfect fellowship, that perfect communion, that oneness with the Father, Jesus is feeling that ripped away. He's not focused on the physical pain, although that was probably excruciating, but he's focused on the spiritual pain because God is about to lay the full weight and the full wrath of his judgment upon sin. He's going to put it on his Son. But what is happening in this moment for you and I is what's known as the Great Exchange. That God is exchanging our sin for Jesus' righteousness. And Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21, he says this. He says, "For our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God." That this moment, God is treating his Son as a sinner. That way God can treat you and I like his Son. And really what this means for you and I boils down to this, that you and I can have fellowship with God, that we are now seen as righteous, that we are now seen as Jesus. That God, when he looks upon you and I, he sees the blood of his Son covering our sin. You and I now can have that perfect fellowship with God. The writer of Hebrews quotes Deuteronomy chapter 31, and he says, "I will never leave you and I will never forsake you." So Jesus had to take our place upon the cross. He had to be forsaken in a moment by his Father, so that you and I can now have this oneness with him. Isaiah chapter 59, verse 2, it says that it is our sin that separates us from God. So you and I, really, we should be asking the question, my God, why have you forsaken me? And the answer is simple, it's our sin. But instead we get to look upon the cross and we get to find hope. We get to find peace, we get to find joy. Because now you and I get to have this fellowship with God. I just want to read to you out of Isaiah chapter 53. And I just hope this encourages you. This kind of engulfs the entire culmination of what is going on. It says, "He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. As one from whom men hid their faces, he was despised and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions and he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was a chastisement that brought us peace. And with his wounds we are healed. And we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. The Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that is before its shears is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. And they made his grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, there was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to our grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be acquainted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgressors. And I just hope this encourages you today as you go about your day, that we can have hope, that we have found peace with God, that you and I are considered righteous because of what Jesus went through on the cross.